find things, where to put them so they can find them again. And honestly, Google Drive is already there. And if you and or your students are familiar with Google Drive, a folder becomes automatically created for every class and every teacher for the assignments that you and your students will be working on through Google Classroom. So that's an automatic. It happens instantly, and if you go into Drive, it will be there automatically. You may even notice that there's a folder that says Classroom, and within there are the names and titles of classes that either you are a participant of or a teacher of, and the way that you have rights to those folders is determined by the type of user you are within Classroom. So another thing that Classroom does to help students, excuse me, it notifies them when work is assigned and when it's due. That's not something that you need to do in an additional email or announcement even. Students will get an email sent to them automatically when something is newly assigned and when it's coming up as a due assignment. Materials become very easily automatically filed in Google Drive because there is an option to be able to share folders or share files with each individual student. And when you do that, just like a copy machine, it will make an exact copy of if you have a handout or a slide presentation or a document, it creates that duplicate for that student. But in addition, it also names the student's first and last name as well as a suffix to that particular document title or slides title. So organization becomes very, very easy within specified items that are being assigned. Communication and assisting with discussions in the Google Stream. We'll take a look at a little more closely how the stream works, what it is, and how you can use that to your advantage. But it is certainly a very beneficial place to locate information and to push out information to your students as well. So as a teacher, what are some of the helpful things that Classroom does for teachers? Again, we do have the Drive folders created, as I mentioned, for students. However, for us as a teacher, we get an assignment folder in Google Drive within that Classroom folder. It is a quick and easy way to create and collect assignments paperlessly, just as I mentioned about how Classroom begins to work for you very much like a digital copy machine. Also, creating assignments and making copies for each student, that's a quick and easy way, something that we don't even have to do on a copy machine. Google does that for us and titles it with the student's name. And because Google saves automatically, it's going to save with that student's individual name, depending on who's logged in and who's using it. So again, another sort of fail-safe backup plan for our students who may not be quite as familiar with saving constantly. Also, you can check on work that's been completed, very much like a checklist, who has and has not turned in a certain assignment. There's a place for you to make announcements. You can also start classroom discussions. If you choose to allow students to participate in those discussions, that's just the slide of a switch within the settings. You can also create, review, and grade assignments. So grading assignments is one of my favorite things about Classroom because it helps us work smarter, certainly not harder. In Spotsylvania, because each school has its own dashboard, student dashboard that is, for each school labeled with the beginning as the school's initials, you can very easily access students can actually access this as their home page when they log into a Chromebook, or if they go to one of these addresses for their particular school, what they will see is their dashboard. And most dashboards, particularly at the elementary and middle level, have icons for frequently used items, and it makes it very easy for students to be able to access this area in a safe place and very quickly click to places that they are familiar with. Classroom is one of the links that is very easily found here, and we tend to put that at the top because our Google apps are frequently used most of the time. So a couple of tips you might want to share with students about logging in if you'd like, you're welcome to print this screen off and post it somewhere near computers or your Chromebooks to make it easy for students to remember if they do have difficulty getting in early in the school year particularly. If the students are on a Chromebook, they're going to log in with their username. That's just their first initial, middle initial, last name, dash, and the second and third number of their student ID. There's no need on a Chromebook to type in the @spotsylvania.k12.va.us. So a little simplified version. The student dashboard should automatically appear on a Chromebook. If it does not, you can click on the Chrome icon near the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and then the house button, which is in the top left-hand corner of the Chrome screen. That will take you to the student dashboard. Should be the home area for students when they log into a Chromebook. If students are on a computer, they still have access to the student dashboard, but they will need to log into Chrome, and they will need to click on the house button. They can copy and paste school.spotsylvania.k12.va.us. And then once they are on the site, they can bookmark by clicking on the star in the top right-hand corner of their screen. By clicking on that, regardless of whether they are on a Chromebook or a laptop or a desktop, as long as they are logged into Google Chrome, bookmarking something in Chrome travels with the user, not necessarily the device. So that makes a quick and easy way for them to get back to the student dashboard at any given time, regardless of the device that they're using. Some tips for parents as well. You may want to, as a teacher, bookmark that student dashboard as well, because for staff in Spotsylvania County, our homepage is the staff dashboard, not necessarily our school's student dashboard. So to make it a little easier to get to, if we're using that site pretty frequently, also you can go to the top right-hand corner of your screen while logged into Chrome, click on the star, it becomes blue, and you can put in a link that's going to show you where to get back to it, and that tells you the folder that it's going to put it in is the bookmarks bar, or if you have other folders, you can organize it here at that time. You may also click done, and at that point you will have saved the student dashboard, and you can just jump in and out of there as needed throughout the day without having to retype the school initials and the long Spotsylvania address. Another place that you can find the student dashboard is by going to your school homepage, whether that is through the Spotsylvania County Public Schools homepage and then selecting the drop-down arrow at the top left of the screen. You choose the school that you would like to go to, and then once you're on your school's page, you're going to click on the student link, then find student dashboard from that drop-down menu, and that's exactly where it's going to bring you back to that student dashboard. So a couple of ways that you can get there, but always a handy thing to either have bookmarked or know how to get to it in a pinch. It's a quick and easy fix. So as a teacher, what can the teacher do with Google Classroom? So we've talked about some of the benefits, but what is it that we can really do with it? Well, specifically, you would be able to create classes, whether you have a math, science, social studies, reading class, you could create an individual class for each. Or if you are a secondary teacher and teach multiple blocks of class, you could create one for each block. You can also add students, and there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. We'll look at how to go about adding students the quickest and most efficient way, or whichever way would work best for you. You can create assignments and announcements right on your classroom page. As I mentioned earlier, you can grade assignments. You can even invite collaborators. So if you co-teach a class with someone, you can invite that teacher to participate as another teacher who is able to also add assignments, participate in discussion, create assignments, and have the same rights and usage that you do as the owner of that page. You can also connect with parents. This is a new feature that's pretty recent that allows you to contact the guardian or send a summary weekly of what's happening in the class in Google Classroom, and give parents and guardians information about what's happening, assignments that were made that particular week, just to create another homeschool connection. You can also very easily connect to Drive, as I've mentioned a couple of times, and we'll look at how more of these things connect and work with each other as we continue today. So in Google Classroom, by clicking on the student dashboard and going to the classroom link, you will get to the classroom home page. Another thing that you may not be aware of, very quickly to access Classroom, if you are logged into Chrome, you can go to the address classroom.google.com, and that will bring you right to the home page as well. Just in the same way that if you wanted to quickly get to Drive, you could click on drive.google.com. And that's pretty much Google's standard for any of the applications you'd like to get into. It's whatever the name of the application is, .google.com, and that becomes pretty easy for most all of us to remember. Okay, so back to Classroom. If you want to navigate the home page of Google Classroom, you would have a home button on the top left, and you'll notice what looks like 3 little lines, sort of like an equal sign with another line under, or 3 stacks of paper, whatever you'd like to call that. That's your menu area. On the dashboard, this particular classroom dashboard, you can see all of the courses that you participate in and all the courses that you facilitate. And each course is identified usually by a different color, and it could be either random if you don't choose a color, or it will give you a few things that look different so that it makes it a little easier to choose and notice the difference. I will mention and point out very specifically that in order to access a class, rather than clicking anywhere in the area of the class, you do very specifically need to click on the words that are underlined. So when you hover over, the name of that class becomes underlined, and that is where you click to access the course. Oftentimes students may become confused and think they're clicking when they're in fact clicking on the color or clicking near the area, but very specifically be sure that they are clicking specifically on the text that becomes underlined when you hover. A few other things that you can see here on this home dashboard. You can tell how many students are enrolled in a specific course. And notice over here that this one has a few students, and it kind of gives you an idea of how many you're working with per classroom, and if your numbers match up with your actual rosters, just as a double check. Something else that you might notice, another menu area that you'll see is here in the top right corner of each of the classes. There are 3 little dots here, and this is another way to open up a different menu where you can either rename the class. So I accidentally may misspell something or forget something I'd like to change here, and I do have the ability to go in and edit by renaming this course. I can also permanently delete a course by clicking here. Now, deleting and archiving are 2 separate things. Deleting removes the course, removes all the content related to it. Archiving is something different, and that may be something you want to consider later. When you're starting a Google Classroom, the first thing that you may hear from students is, how do I get in your class? How do I add this to my own dashboard of classes? At the top, near your name, you will notice there's a small plus. That plus button is actually where you can add a course, or join a class. Whether you are a teacher, if you click this button and start, it will ask you, do you want to create a course or join a course? For students, it only gives them the option to join a course. And we will take a look at that. So another page that you have within Google Classroom is the stream. And when you click on a course, this is what opens sort of as your landing page or your home page within your classroom. Now, this class actually has 4 participating teachers. And over here you see these are the teachers associated with this classroom. The owner is first, and then the subsequent teachers that have been asked to participate are listed across the top as well. At the very top of the page, again, you should notice your login or the student's login, the username, your email address of the person who is using and logged in to Chrome. Over here on the left, we see those menu lines again, the title of the course, and there are 3 specific areas that we're going to talk about in more detail. This button is a stream, will take you to the stream. This is actually what we're looking at now. This area along the bottom is the classroom stream. This is where assignments, announcements, questions, conversations get posted, and that it's viewable by anyone who is enrolled in this course. Now, you do have the ability as a teacher to change this. This is where you can either allow students to participate in the conversation or not. Depending on the way that you want to use this area will determine whether you turn that option on or off for students, and we'll look at that in just a moment. The other tab that you have within this page is the students page, and this shows a list. We'll look at that page in a moment. All of the students who are enrolled in this course, and I think for students, their view actually says classmates, whereas for you, the instructor, it says students. Then you also have a third button called About, and this is where resources can be linked, related content information can be posted. It's a good place for you to put enrichment activities, remediation sites, frequently visited sites that you would like students to practice with. So we'll take a look at that also. Now, this is the Students tab. I'm going to go back one. So if I were to click on Students in the center right here, when I click on Students, it's going to bring me to a page that looks similar to this. There are a few components here that we want to take a look at. The very first thing is you can either invite students to join by clicking this button. And if you do that, you would need to have every student's email address or the list of student names, because as you begin to type in their name, their email address will pop up and you can select if that's the correct student, and you can send invitations that will appear in student email address, email inboxes. So that's just one way you can invite students. Another way that you can get students into your class is to use this class code. And it is a unique code that students can type into at that plus area we looked at on the main screen, where the students have an option to join a class. This is the code that is being asked for when they click the button to join a class. Now, honestly, I believe, in my opinion, this is the easiest way to enroll students, whether you are working with kindergartners or high school juniors. This individual, very unique code can be posted, written on the board, emailed to students, and they could actually type it in from home. They can type it in anytime and join, because it's very simply lowercase letters. All of the letters are small and all of the numbers tend to be tall, and the only number letter combination that I've seen that could be even remotely confusing would be a lowercase o or the number 0. And I try to tell students small are letters, tall are numbers. So if it looks tall and it looks like an O, it's a 0. So that would be the only confusing point there. Okay, I did mention earlier that there is access for parents to get some information about what's happening in the classroom, Google Classrooms that their students participate in. So by clicking on this particular slide, this slide bar here, you would turn it from gray, slide it to the right and turn it green. This allows parents to opt in to receiving activity summaries. You can also invite the guardian by clicking on this link here. So if once the student's parent has chosen to participate in the summaries, instead of the words invite guardians being here, you will see the parent email address. So that's a quick and easy way to scan through and tell who has accepted and who is receiving your weekly summaries. Over here, you also have an option to email the student or the participant. And that's another little menu. We'll see those 3 dots. Google uses that as a menu item, as well as the 3 horizontal lines. Also, I did mention that, and I'm going to go back one more time. From the stream page, from the landing page or the home page, this stream, this area in the very beginning, there is an option to allow students to participate. This is configured, and this setting can be changed in the Students tab. So you have to be in the Students tab, and the option here says students can post and comment, or you can click this button and have the option for only teacher comments. Depending on how you want to operate this, depending on the age and content of the course, the age of the students, the content of the course, that is entirely up to you. And I would suggest that if you are going to allow students to post and comment here, that you do have a conversation with your students about what is acceptable, and this is an extension of classroom and behavior parameters and those types of things. That never hurts to go over that again. Okay, so in the About tab, and that's the 3rd tab, you can see that there's a link, a folder that you would see in Drive. That's actually a shortcut to the Classroom's Drive folder. There's also a shortcut to assignments posted in Google Calendar. And yes, if you have assignments posted, it will make a new calendar that you can look at in Google Calendar. Students can subscribe to that. It will show up for them. At the bottom of this page, this would be where you have links that you would want to share. Oftentimes, I see a number of teachers using this for frequently used sites, practice sites that they recommend to students that they would like to use either for remediation or enrichment, and a nice place for them to be able to very safely, quickly post something that is the correct link versus having students go to Google and just do a random search for something. So this sort of skips that step and makes sure that students are pointed in exactly the right direction. Now, if a parent signs up to receive information, the weekly summary would show up looking something like this. And it gives an overview of what the class is, the week that is being discussed, any announcements that were made, assignments that were made, and that just goes to the parent's inbox. If they have any questions, you may want to just put it out there to parents that they can email you with any questions or concerns that they have about information that comes into them from week to week. Now, the benefit of this being connected to Google Drive, Classroom and Google Drive work seamlessly because they're both Google products. The benefits are that in Drive and Mail, both connected to Classroom, it has unlimited storage. Because we are a Google Apps school division, there's unlimited storage space for education. So that is a fabulous way for us to save and use information online without taking up space on devices. It makes a very quick and easy way to upload your files. Quick and easy way also to share documents. And my favorite part about Google is the collaboration that can happen between the documents and the items that you can work on in a digital format. Even though you're in a digital world, a digital environment, the connections that you can continue to make and branch out to other people in terms of sharing, project work, planning is just exceptional. If you are not familiar with the different types of documents that are within Google Drive, Docs happens to be very much like Microsoft Word. Slides looks and feels and operates very much like PowerPoint. Sheets is very similar to Excel. It has many spreadsheet functions and continues to add more pretty regularly. And then Forms, this is very much like a survey, a questionnaire, a database that you might be able to put in. And a new feature for Forms is that you can automatically tell it to function like a quiz. You can give point values, choose the correct answer. So Forms has become very versatile in the way that it can be used and can certainly benefit teachers in the amount of time that it shortens paper and coursework grading. And the last piece that is out there in Google is Google Draw. And it can be, these drawings can be embedded within any of the other items that you see here, any of these other documents, or it can be a standalone. A few resources that are here. This link is 38 ways to use Google Drive in your classroom. And I'm just going to click here so we can take a look. Some fabulous ideas, and they are specifically related by document. So this is related to docs, forms, slides, sheets, and then here you can see some other tips that they share with you. So there's that. The Spotsylvania County Public Schools GAP support page is actually a link off of our staff dashboard. And one of my favorite things about this site is that if you want to learn by app, and I would say I want to learn more about Google Documents, I could click here and it would allow me to look at some training videos. If I'm setting up my iPhone or Android, if I'm gonna just look at the basics, there are all of these things very quickly, easily accessible to us from our Spotsy page. There's also on Facebook an SCPS GAP support. If you go into Facebook and like that page, you can certainly get some more tips in that area, as well as tips from your ITRTs. These tips that you see here come from a collaborative effort between myself and another ITRT, Lisa Thompson. And we put a few things together and tagged this one excellent in particular because Alice Keeler is someone that I think anybody using Google Classroom should certainly follow. She has some amazing suggestions and tips. You can follow her on Twitter. She frequently puts out a new tip of the day, just amazing little tiny things that seem so time-saving. So that's really an exceptional resource there alone. So I'm going to go back. And the reason I list Lisa Thompson here, she and I put together this presentation early in the school year for a collaborative PD between our two schools that went really well. And so we hope that if you have questions, feel free to reach out to either of us or to the ITRT in your building. And I also want to share with you one other thing here, Chromebook help and tips. There is a folder that this links to, and this happens to be through my school. This is through Battlefield Elementary, Battlefield Middle. However, if you have questions and reach out to your ITRT, I can make this available to them for you as well. And so there's some tips here about how to use Chromebooks, some of the shortcuts that are out there, just some basic things that might help get you started if you haven't been using them very much yet. Now, when Lisa and I did this particular presentation with our staffs face-to-face, we made this an interactive part of the lesson. We wanted to reach out and extend this to you as well, so that if you, at this point, would like to try a few things just to get started, you could pause this video, keep the screen up, and take a shot at trying a few of these things. These would be the basics. So we have, this would be the early beginner version, and then we have a version 2.0. So this screen, if you wanted to pause here, some things to get you started with would be creating an announcement. And within that announcement, be sure that you include a welcome and how you might be using Classroom for the remainder of the year, or if you were setting this up for the beginning of the school year, just to give your parents and users, your students, anyone else that you might invite to this course, some background. What are you going to be using this for? The second thing I'd like for you to try is to create an assignment. And if you have an existing worksheet, and I think most teachers do, have one saved somewhere on their hard drive or in their Google Docs or their Drive folder, pull in something that already exists. You don't have to create something from scratch. Pull in an assignment connected to something that you've already done, because that's the best way to get started and just jump right in with both feet. Something else you might want to choose is an example writing prompt. If you're elementary, it could be an image with some directions on it. If you are secondary, it could be an SOL practice prompt. Make sure that you create that assignment and include that prompt so that when students have it, it will open up and each one of them can have their own individual copy. And then finally, add a resource link. Think of a site that you point or direct your students to pretty frequently and make a link to that so that it is on your About page. And if you're feeling up for a challenge, a little beyond the 100 level, maybe the 2.0 level, a couple of things that you may want to test out your skills would be in creating an example writing prompt in Drive. You could create it there and then connect it to Classroom. Adding a resource link to the About tab, another easy place to put something, whether it is a site that's for extension, for remediation, good place to stick that in there. Put it on the About tab for your students to very quickly, easily get to. And then finally, invite another teacher or a coach to join your class. I know that oftentimes I will tell teachers or other folks that are using this, feel free to invite me as a student or invite me as a teacher, because I'll be happy to be a guinea pig and help you try out a few new things if you'd like to before things get started with your students or before you get them enrolled in your course. So I think that's it for our presentation. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with me today and learning a little bit about Google Classroom. This certainly is one of the easiest things I have seen in a very long time that is a high-tech way to get information out to students and to share what's happening in your classroom in a digital way so that students can be very self-directed and have access not only at school but at home as well. And it really is very low maintenance in terms of what we have to do on our end as teachers. So this truly is a really positive way to get in and connect digitally, and it's more teaching, less teching. So thank you so much for participating.